Okay, everybody, good afternoon. December 5th, Underground Utilities Mapping Project Team meeting. And the agenda has been previously distributed, but just as a reminder, there it is. And I think with that, it takes us right down to the very first item on the agenda, chair opening comments, and then my brief admin items. So, Barb, the
Yeah,
floor.
so thanks. Yeah, thanks everybody. It's been a good 4 years. Today we're doing a transition of the gavel from me to Kelly. So Kelly will now be the chair of this in her role as a Gopher State Chief Operations Officer. It's been a great project for me to be part of, and I can't thank you enough for all the work. Today we'll hear that we're on the verge of having the commercial release candidate, and want to talk on how we go forward in Minnesota. So, Kelly, do you have anything you'd wish to say?
Just that thank you for letting me try to again fill your great shoes. And I'm looking forward to working on this project more in a more in-depth manner. I think is really exciting for our state and just really exciting um, piece of software. So thanks all.
Mhm.
So, Barb, we have one question.
Yes.
When's the party?
Oh, well, Gopher State had a party, a real nice dinner party last month. So that was just fine with me.
Oh, so the
Yeah.
bon voyage has already happened, huh? Okay, all right. Well, shocking detail for me to find out in this meeting. Yeah. Um, Next leadership meeting. The quick admin notes we got going here at Friday, December 20th. That's for the muckety mucks to powwow about what we're doing here. Next large group meeting, you can pencil it in for Thursday, March 27th at 1 p.m. in the afternoon. And that's about the extent of what I have for admin notes. Anybody got anything for me real quick? Going once, going twice, gone. Okay, off the agenda, we're going to spend as much time as it takes, but we're thinking it shouldn't run any longer than 220 of doing a general phase one review and discussion. I'll start out with an overview and then we'll turn it over to the experts that can fill us in on kind of the thinking of where things are headed. And then we've got 15 minutes broken out there for Travis to talk about. He's put together with several others looking at it. I believe it is 79 items that he would like to see as elements of the development on the field markup. So Travis will have a period of time to talk about that. And then Barb's going to finish things up here at the end with how should we implement things to, we're in as she's indicated, we're at the point where we're transitioning from talking about developing software to now trying to implement it. And the critical piece there is getting the community buy-in. Okay, so I thought I'd start out the overview piece with just kind of a reminder where Barb and I started out with this. This is a slide that we did for the Clean Water Council, the stuff in the gray. Um, and we originally started out on this adventure with Barb had three primary goals: more accurate maps, the ability to share data, and safer excavation. And the original vision in there was that we would do some research, figure out what things were out there that were examples that we could follow, and then about time frame of 2022, release this best practices document that would serve as this guidepost for how maybe the state could move forward and so on and so forth. Well, what I really want to point out to you here is I know you're tired of me using the we're growing a tree, not a flipping a light switch thing. But here it is, just as a reminder. This whole thing started with discussions taking place in the 2018 and 2019 timeframe, and they were pretty spotty in 2018. And then we had this meeting in 2019 in October out at Centerpoint Energy. So those are the discussions, and after that, sort of like thinking about how this thing could work and what we would do, we came to the conclusion that we would try to put together the team that you're participating in here. So that's the 2020 timeframe. We spent the spring and summer. Barb pulled out her Rolodex that had the stuff in it for the underground community, and I pulled mine out for the GIS community, and we launched in August of 2020. And even back then, we were looking at this thing as having a long-term horizon. And so, let's now take a look at where we are in 2024. FuzionView development and outreach components, because those are the two principal elements of making this thing work. So here we go. Um, I reminded you before, we're passing the baton as this thing goes forward. Here we are, 2024 to 2025. What does that look like? Um, I believe there are four principal elements, and I've floated this before, and I've cleaned it up a little bit. The idea of the cleanup phase one and start of phase two. And so that's the difference between FuzionView and the field markup. So the things that I think are the transitions that we need to be tuned into and aware of is, first of all, transitioning from software development to facility operator outreach and onboarding. And there's a subtle difference between sort of the process that we've been doing before with the conferences and whatnot that we've been participating in. We've more or less thought of that as being, concept socialization, getting the community to think about this and maybe look at the approach that we're taking as being a way forward. The outreach is going to be more about knocking on doors and then actually getting people to engage and join the system. The second kind of major thing that we're going to be looking at as we move into 2025 is managing the startup of the field markup project. Item three on here, fully implementing the FuzionView in the GSOC OCC system and the completion of initial onboarding and testing. And finally, the open source release of FuzionView. That's at least how I see kind of the the handoff here as we go from 24 into 25. For your kind of
And Steve, I just wanted to add that this is a
Sure.
significant inflection point in the project to go through these four things. And you hear about the timing of all this today. It's really a big step.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, and so, just as again, more background or overview here. Here's how the project has been developing up until this point. The core software, as you can see, has been largely built during 2024. And the project, there's other stuff that hangs on that software to make it work. And by December 5th, today, we're looking at thinking of this core software being at 90%, 96% complete, and the project development at 91%. So, other kind of benchmarks that have occurred as it relates to what's going on with software development. On November 15th, OCC validated that FuzionView was at beta. In other words, they had tested within their system components of it that are vital to making FuzionView work. And in their sandbox, they're saying it's all looking good. ShareG and OCC have begun efforts to implement FuzionView release candidate in the GSOC system. And later in the agenda, Adam will be talking about steps that they're looking at and kind of how they see that piece coming together. Next 6 months for FuzionView and the field markup. So again, I'm trying to stick with the software here versus talking about process. So December 31st, we're looking to try to have the field markup design plan completed in some form or fashion. And then January 13th, begin development after everybody's come back and eat too much in terms of holiday meal or whatever. Field markup work's going to start, and then FuzionView technical outreach support documents website complete. But we're going to try to target getting that stuff completed by the 1st of February. March 15th, FuzionView open source documentation draft completed by that point in time. And by the 31st, FuzionView initial partners begin onboarding with OCC. And again, this is sort of like, we're trying to balance this stuff between what's the realities over at OCC, who's on vacation, whatever the case might be. But in general, we're kind of seeing those areas. And Adam again can correct me in his part as he sees fit. And then GSOC, OCC, FuzionView acceptance final sign off. We're going to try to target that by the end of May. And then finally, July 1st, FuzionView open source release. So it'll give us a little bit of time after the GSOC and OCC implementation has been signed off as being good to go and up and running, and then the actual product available out there for anybody to grab it online and run away and do whatever they wish to do with it. So that's kind of where we're seeing things as it sits right now. And I'm always the optimist, and Dean, as the realist, will tell me that the length of time it's going to take to get this done will be a little bit longer. But this is what we're trying to push to do so that we can, in no kidding, 2025 have meet the benchmark of having the product on the street, working in OCC's system, and starting to do the onboarding of the Pioneer partners.
Yep.
So
Steve, I would just
questions?
offer two amendments to that.
Sure.
One is that there's essentially two phases of the rollout on the OCC side. The first phase is where we're implementing the beta. When that reaches 100%, we'll be delivering that to the clients through a controlled environment using the FuzionView maps and displays. The second phase is the full implementation with the APIs and full functionality. The other thing I just want to throw out there is probably the biggest impact on the timeline is when those APIs are completed. From our side, we've got this well into our planning. It's built in and baked into what we've been doing this year and what we're going to be doing next year. So once we get that, we'll be able to hit the ground running. So I think your estimates are fair and reasonable, assuming that the delivery timelines line up.
Understood. Thank you, Adam. I appreciate that. Any other comments? Okay, we'll press on here. All right, so now shifting over to the community socialization effort. This just is provided as a sense of the extent of what's gone on. And I'm only showing the significant events here on this list. I had to file yesterday the year-end report for the Emergency Preparedness Committee, and given the fact that this project team is one of the projects within the EPC, I had to generate this list to start with. So I thought I'll steal it and drop it in here so you can take a look at it. But truly an impressive effort, and I think it's fair to say that during 2024, Bob, and Adam's outreach efforts have been significant to the degree of the base level's been laid for what will happen during rollout in 2025. Moving right along, the next 6 months of socialization and outreach. I put both those terms together, but I think as you'll see going forward, this list is a lot thinner because we are going to be focusing more on the actual outreach piece of connecting with the various utilities versus continuing the effort to socialize the concepts within the community. And Travis, I would just ask you to chime in. Did you get any feedback from directional drilling folks as to, whether they're going to want you to come and talk or?
I did not. I heard crickets, so I don't
Okay.
know what that's about.
Okay, so we'll consider that one as a non-starter. And I wasn't sure exactly as to where we ended up with the situation on um, the the CGA conference. And then Kelly just chimed in with the fact that she's going to be going over to the Michigan event in January. So that is an additional thing and important from the standpoint of engagement of another future possible participant in the effort going forward.
And I would expect the FNCA will continue to be updated on this project. And that's the Facility Notification Association. So
Okay.
most of the one call centers are part of that.
So we have a good breadth of events, but we got a little bit overrun there towards the end of last year, and we will do a better job of trying to meter stuff so that it isn't such a draw on us away from the outreach and onboarding effort. Kelly just corrected; that'll be over in February over in
Sorry, I
Michigan.
just meant the FNCA is in February in
Oh,
Charleston.
okay. I, I'm not good at the fast notes. Sorry, Kelly. Okay. Um, that takes us on to the next slide, and I think what we got here is some other developments.
Do you want to talk about, oh yeah, the PHMSA. Do you want to talk about your PHMSA deal? Because that's kind of a big deal.
What's
The,
that?
the way they want to talk about it.
Yeah, I've got it here in just a
Oh,
minute.
thank you.
I
Oh, okay.
think, unless did I miss it back here? I probably did. Hold on. Oh. Why is it that, let's see here. Oh, thank you, Barb. The PHMSA has done outreach to us. They are planning to do interviews or are asking us to participate in interviews in the week of January 13th. That's an outreach on their part that they would like to be able to develop a story supporting the technical assistant grant program at PHMSA, showing how the use of money was such that it, actually facilitated and has done something of benefit. And so we are fully interested in trying to do what we can do to support PHMSA because their money came at a critical point in time that kept the project rolling along. So we're all in on doing whatever we can do to support PHMSA. And at our December 20th meeting, we'll make a final determination of who we'd like to have participating in that. Other developments, October, November timeframe, the leadership team has been working through financing and a way forward discussion. Still kind of yet to be officially announced, and we'll wait on that. I think maybe Dean may contribute something or thinking on that a little bit later. December 2nd, we filed our closeout report with PHMSA, completing phase one. And so that was submitted and accepted by PHMSA. The only thing they've asked us to do is to come back with them after the system is actually up and running to be able to report back to them some statistical information about level of improvement. So fully understanding the Washington bean counter approach, and I'm not sure that within a short period of time frame that we'll be able to get numbers back to them right away. But we're looking forward to the ability to try to support them in that regard. December 4th, MGAC Emergency Preparedness Committee, I just talked about that. The annual closeout report was filed. And then the parent organization of this group, which I chair, the Emergency Preparedness Committee, we do typically a 90-minute or 2-hour event once a quarter. And just so you're aware of it, not that the folks that are attending this event would probably need to sit in on this, but Bob will be back for the first time in 2 years. I did the original brief back in early 2022, trying to bring the overall Emergency Preparedness Committee up to speed about what this project was and where it was headed. And now, with this briefing, Bob will be coming on board to update that group. We get usually between 20 and 60 folks showing up, depending on topic and time of year. And I've already had a couple of inquiries from utility people that are talking about spreading the word around in their group. So hopefully we'll get a good group to hear Bob's pitch on what this is about. And it's an opportunity for us to reach out and leave on the EPC YouTube channel another update that will help define where the project is headed and how to think about it in going into 2025. Okay, the last thing I have for you is an update. And this is just me talking. Um, I, I rolled this by the group last time we were together, and it was trying to help people understand where the potential is on how this effort could go forward. And so as I started my comments, I showed you what we looked like back in, the 2020, five years ago, what it's taken to go from chatting about doing something about fixing the problem to actually being on the verge of implementing phase one, and that's the unified view of a dig site GIS data of participating facility operators. And then we're moving, as I've indicated, into phase two, field markup, field reporting of locate data in abandoned or unknown infrastructure. My guess would be it'll probably take 2 years to fully make that operational and begin to build some engagement. And then I talked about this isn't just a one and done, or as they call it in the science world, a popcorn um, product where you get a bunch of money and you build something and then nobody uses it. The idea would be that it's a continuous flow of development to get to an in place that absolutely solves 90% of the issue of the stuff getting hit underground. Um, and you're always left with, as I can tell you in the pilot world, 10% is going to get blamed on the pilot. So, the augmented reality would be phase three. And that was originally Barb's driving interest, was what can we do to do a better job of providing to the guys running the excavators, the guys doing the locating, what is it that we can do? Well, we've had to build phase one and phase two to make phase what I vision as being phase three is working, and that's data refinement enables improved field awareness through augmented reality. And then finally, phase four, the Holy Grail, literally knowing where everything is and being able to look at it in 3D and it being the design engineer's best possible outcome. So we've been at this 8 years, and all I'm suggesting here is the horizon going forward, another 10, but if we don't do it, it's not going to get fixed. So that's me preaching. And with that, I'll shut up and turn the floor over to somebody that's competent. Bob, are you ready to talk?
Sure. So the project is actually moving along fairly well. We've been concentrating on fleshing out the data providers' kind of administrative interfaces. I know everybody's seen the application itself, quite a bit already. But the things that we've been working on is, how this data providers admin interface has been cooking along here. And oh, hang on, I got to relog in, I guess. So the idea here is that you can jump in from the administrative interface here but what we've been concentrating on is how the connections and everything work from a data provider's service and how it connects up to the FuzionView engine. So we've built in systems where we can actually run a test ticket. So we can run a test ticket for a particular layer and submit that. I'm not going to do one right here because there's an actual lag time between the time the test ticket is sent and the time that you get the data back. But I did run one this morning, and the one that we're looking at here is you can see that the test ticket was an actual success. This is the connection that was made. What we did is we very recently added in the streetlights for the city of St. Paul, and this test ticket that was run this morning basically is showing the data for the actual lighting coming from that layer that was recently set up. So what we've been concentrating on is making all of this stuff very accessible from the data provider's end of the equation. This isn't going to how do I say this? Not necessarily, it's not aligning with what is going on over at OCC, but a lot of the work that goes into setting up these connections and making them work, OCC is going to be managing this a little differently than the way we're designing this end interface, but we're building this interface so that even OCC can use this behind the scenes. The point of it is that we're trying to make this process as easy and low impact as possible for both the data providers and the administrators to be able to onboard folks at will. So we've been really kind of working on making this piece of it as solid and working without any problems as possible. So this is the pieces of the equation that we've been really putting a lot of effort into in the last month or so. So and it's coming along very nicely. So we're getting making very good progress on this. Any questions, thoughts there?
No, I was just going to say, Bob,
Yep.
what I'm going to show today is actually the first phase of integration, which does marry into what you're showing here. So it's consistent with what I'm going to explain as well from our side.
Yep. That's kind of the basics of the where we're at on the project itself is really concentrating on this end piece of it and getting into the data. Adam, as Adam just indicated, he's going to talk about the integration. We're going to be jumping around here quite a bit because there's a lot of how do I say this? Stirring spoons in the pot. So we're pulling together a lot of this stuff and starting to actually, implement is where we're, the pieces of the equation now. I'm not going to jump into Adam's side of the equation, but just to get it started there, we're with the release candidate that basically is all OCC kind of taking on the reins and starting up a service of their own and getting it ready to start onboarding folks. So I'll let Adam flesh that out further, but this is where we're at with the FuzionView engine project itself. What I wanted to interject here at this point is that the FuzionView engine that we built is kind of its own little construct. And I don't want to say that it's necessarily a standalone thing. It's built with the intent to extend it. And the field data collection stuff that Steve has already talked about in his list of things that are coming, that's a next version of things that are, I shouldn't say version, that's the next iteration of the FuzionView engine itself that's going to add on quite a bit of embellishment to what's here in the FuzionView engine basic form. So there's quite a bit of other stuff that's going to be coming up down the stream here from the field data collection side. The engine that we've been working on is primarily for organizing the data providers as they're connecting up, their data connections and all that kind of stuff and keeping track of all that. That's the big main focus of the FuzionView engine so far. With the field data collection piece being added on, that's going to add quite a bit of capabilities from the field user side of things and how they are able to handle things. And Travis will start talking about that as well. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. And then lastly, we have actually started working on Travis's list. Basically, we're using him as a subject matter expert to get a list started of all of the different kinds of things that he would like to see. This is basically our needs list. And as Steve indicated, there's about 80 items in there, and each one of these items has, they relate to each other. There's some groupings and sorting ways that we can kind of look at them, but Travis will talk about that, I think, in a little bit more detail. But the point of it is we've got we're past a first needs list for the field data collection side of the equation. So that's going to be, we're going to start shifting into working on that as well as we start closing out the FuzionView engine project at the same time. So any other questions, thoughts there? I think I covered the stuff that's kind of in my basket.
Bob, could you just do the Pioneer Partners where each of those are today? Because you're so close to it.
Yeah,
for people to hear.
Yeah, so the Pioneer Partners, the bigger ones that we've got are we got the city of Blaine, we got MnDOT. There's actually two different data providers. There's one from their ITS, which is their Intelligent Transportation Systems, and another from MnDOT for I can't remember the name of the other one.
I think it's hydraulic.
Yeah, hydraulics, but
Yeah.
they have a bigger group name. I can't remember what it was. It just came up this morning in another meeting. We've got the city of St. Paul on board now. They're going to have at least two data providers, probably three inside the city, if we get water as well. So water, how do I say this? Not all departments in the city of St. Paul are using necessarily the same systems for GIS and managing their spatial data. So we're going to have more than one data provider. I know we're going to have two data providers from the city of St. Paul, probably three. So those kinds of aspects of the project are kind of pushing different kind of development aspects, because the way that I'm just giving you a little bit of insight into the background or the back end of things here. The city of St. Paul is only known to OCC or GSOC as the city of St. Paul. They don't know all this separation of data providers. The separation in the data providers is there's going to be one data provider for public works. There's going to be another one for water, and there's probably going to be another one for sewers, because those are the three main data managers inside of the city of St. Paul. So, and the city of St. Paul is not the only one like that. So there's also going to be, we've got Hutchinson online for one of our Pioneer Partners. The interesting piece about Hutchinson is their data sets are managed by a group called Logis at the state. And Logis is operating all of their online services. So working through Hutchinson will actually be setting up a template inside of Logis to have them make it easier for anybody else in the Logis management group to be able to share their data as well.
And how many municipalities does Logis do?
Oof.
Approximately.
Steve, what was it, about 32, I believe? That one, I didn't know that I was supposed to have that one in my memory.
No, but something like that.
No, it's,
Yeah.
my memory served me correct. It's 70.
Oh,
No,
is it that
70.
high? Okay. I didn't know if it was that high or not.
So again, connecting them is through Hutchinson is a entry into 70 municipalities.
Yep.
Bob, just one thing to correct there, and this is probably relevant for some of the other one call center reps as well. We have members who do isolate their data the way that you described for the city of St. Paul. We have some that keep it all combined as a single data provider, but we have plenty of members, and I'm sure others do as well, who do isolate and break that down. And they just essentially treat each of those different data providers as a separate source. The labeling might all be city of St. Paul, but it also could be city of St. Paul electric, city of St. Paul water, city of St. Paul sewer, whatever the division is that they want for those responsibilities.
Yeah, and to tell you the truth, the city of St. Paul would probably prefer that. I know their lighting has already started grousing about, well, we want to control our own stuff,
Yep.
so
And they have that ability through Gopher
Yep.
State One Call.
Yep. Cool. Any other questions?
Thanks, Bob.
Yep.
Adam, I think we talked about it. You've got some
Yep.
slides that you want to run?
Yep, just got a couple here, and I'll keep it real simple and high level. Let me see if I can figure out how to do this. Share. Is that working?
You got it.
Okay. So, Bob, you mentioned this is kind of a self-contained program, and I would agree with that. In fact, I'd probably consider it more self-contained than you do. I think that, at a high level, from a one call center's initial efforts or really the minimal efforts required by a one call center for integration, it essentially operates as a standalone product. The development is really just to create the connections between the two. In the breakdown here, I'm laying out the way that we will implement this for the first phase that goes live for Gopher State One Call. Essentially, a user comes into our system, they'll create a ticket. The ticket will be delivered to the FuzionView system and processed. FuzionView will identify the known utility data that exists within the excavation entity, and then they will pass that back as a link to the OCC system or the Gopher State One Call system. And then that link will be embedded in the ticket so that the user can route directly to the FuzionView system to be able to see the data. And it's really simple. So for the other one call centers out there that are contemplating integrating this, yes, obviously you could do the same thing that we're going to do downstream with the release candidate, where you use the APIs to build everything into your own system. But at the very, highest level, the very simplest integration, all you really have to do is have those connections between your system and the FuzionView system to pass the data back and forth. And then you have to have a way to allow the users to access that data. In this scenario, what I'm showing is what the ticket view looks like anywhere inside of the OCC software. So in this case, this user has access to a ticket that they submitted or potentially that someone else submitted, but they've been allotted access to. And because we've sent that ticket to FuzionView, identified that there are facilities in that area, we've added a button to their ticket view to access the FuzionView system. Just to give you a close up there, real simple. It'll show up gray if there is no data, if the user doesn't have access, or if we haven't received something back from FuzionView. Bob did mention there's a little bit of lag between that handoff. We send the ticket to them, they have to evaluate the data, and then they send the link back to us. So if it hadn't yet registered, the button would be grayed out. Once data has been identified and we know that that user is allowed access to that data, the ticket will be highlighted or the button will be highlighted to take the user into the FuzionView system. When they click that, obviously the Polygon data is going to be carried over in the FuzionView view. And Bob, I think you've shown some significant updates on the map since we got this screenshot. But once they're in, they'll be interacting within the FuzionView system. Very straightforward, very easy to implement. Long-term, when we do the implementation into our system, essentially the functionality would be the same, except there won't be a need for a button. The user, when they're on the screen where they're viewing the ticket, if they have access, we'll overlay that and display it within the ticket view so that they don't have to go out to a separate source. And there isn't any back and forth at that point. As soon as the data is loaded into the system, it'll be displayed as part of the overlay on the map. Is that what you wanted me to cover, Steve? I hope I understood correctly.
That was a thing of beauty. Sweet and simple.
Yeah.
Adam, could you talk a little bit about your vision for trying to bring folks in to the FuzionView system? What you would be thinking of your approach during 2025?
During 25, we'll be doing a lot of outreach to the member facilities as well as the excavators, targeted primarily on those that, from the excavation side that we know are going to be able to get the most value out of this. Obviously, we've identified design engineers as our first target for marketing, bringing them in from the excavation side so that they can get set up to be able to view the data. But we'll also be doing mass communications to the facility operators, making them aware that the functionality is ready and able to be implemented. We'll work with, the known facility operators that have expressed interest and really try to build a relationship with folks that can be advocates. I think word of mouth is going to be the number one way to spread or increase the adoption in the field. So we want to find those partners that are, representative of each utility group. So gas, electric, water, sewer, telco, and find those folks that can really help us, write white papers, explain the value that they experienced from their side, how it affected their operations, so that we can take that and use it to advertise to other folks who might be interested in the process. The onboarding will be manual in the beginning. We don't expect there to be a flood of facility operators coming in initially who want to share data. We expect people to be hesitant and to kind of watch and wait to some extent, which is why those pioneer partners acting as our word of mouth advertisers are going to be so important. But as soon as we start to see a pickup in the amount of utilities registering, we'll start working on automating those processes. If that doesn't happen before the release candidate, then it'll just be done as part of the release candidate build, where we can invite them to come in and register themselves and do some self-service work with their notification areas.
Does that tab show up if they aren't partners?
If they were not set up to have access to the data, it would either be grayed out or not visible at all. That's kind of still subject to some debate.
Well, I just think that would be great for advertising. So if a button is grayed out and curiosity is the best advertising. And so that when they click on that, if they're not members, then it takes them to a page. Hey, this is what it is. This is where you get signed up. So
yes.
Great idea.
Spot on, Travis. Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things people ask, hey, why can't I access this? And that's enough to get the conversation started. And you can see here, like the refresh marks extend life. That's what the grayed out looks like. So you still can see that it's there. It's just not a clickable option.
Great info, Adam. Are there any more questions for Adam? We're effectively going to be passing the baton from Share Geo to OCC. So you'll be center spotlight in 2025, Adam.
Sounds good to me.
All right. We like it.
Just make sure the spotlight's warm.
You're really going to like my last slide in that case. Let's see here. I think, Kelly, you might be up. Hold on here a second.
I think I am.
Okay. Do you want this? What do you need, Kelly? Do you want the screen? You want to do?
I don't need the screen. Maybe next time I will definitely need the screen. But today I'm just talking very high level about next steps in terms of our vision for moving this forward from a marketing perspective next year. This is something that we're very much still working on. So I just have some broad outlines of thought points, and we can definitely provide more detail as time goes on here. But first of all, you're kind of looking at this in several buckets. First of all, we really want to make sure that we're branding this product as something that is like GSOC, looking like GSOC, has materials that are reflective of it being a Minnesota specific product that facility operators can take advantage of. So the first thing we're going to be doing is working internally in our end to brand this program as part of the Gopher State One Call system, and having that branding align with Gopher State One Call. And then in addition to that, developing the materials. So we've already got a really great decision makers document from the folks at Share Geo that we're going to be working off of, but continuing to develop materials that are maybe a little higher level so that people can get initial interest, and then making sure that they, again, are branded in a way that reflects that it is a Minnesota specific opportunity. So one other thing that I heard mentioned throughout this discussion too is really talking about how the people who are doing this already are going to be its best spokespeople and ambassadors. And so really cultivating spokespeople from those pioneer partners to be used in materials and the recruitment of additional partners. So that's obvious in terms of the technology side, but I think from the marketing perspective, that's critical as well. So definitely recruiting those folks. And I think here too, the proof is obviously in the pudding, in terms of people being able to see how it's working already. So really a lot of this, I think, is going to be timed so that it's online and we can show people how it works with our Pioneer partners. The second piece of this is really key audiences for outreach and tiering that outreach. And I think, through my conversations with Barb, and we still have to talk about this a little bit more, but municipalities obviously present the greatest opportunity. So really focusing in on opportunities not only to speak in front of those crowds, but reaching out to specific municipalities who may have a connection, like we said, or using that management software that is already in use in some of these municipalities, but also just approaching like Association of Minnesota Municipal Utilities Association, the Counties Association, and like I said, developing relationships with individual municipalities to show them how this is working and how it could benefit them. Obviously, there's a long list of potential facility operators, and so we would tier that outreach over time, understanding, as Adam said, that there will be people who are hesitant. And so really just focusing in on where we think we can make the most progress most quickly. So as we said, as mentioned earlier, the expected release of the software integration into the system is in March. So really working over the next couple of months to develop those contacts and lists of people we want to reach out to, developing those marketing materials, and then starting in earnest to reach out to municipalities as it comes online, and then staging out that outreach as it becomes more manageable, as we are doing this individually across the state. So that's really a brief overview of what we're thinking about going into 2025. It's like a tremendous amount of work, and just thinking about how to stage it out and bringing capacity online to do that is number one objective.
Thank you, Kelly.
Yep.
Any questions for I was going to say top dog, but that would be a bad use of word. So please forgive me.
Hey, I got a question here. Kelly, I got a question. Brad here. We met at APWA conference.
Hi.
Hi. So A, send me your email. B, remember what I'm on the planning committee for the APWA conference, but I'm also on the steering committee for what we call Minnesota. It used to be Minnesota 2050. Now it's Minnesota Infrastructure Alliance. So remember, the Alliance covers 18 professional groups. So it's the city engineer group, it's the county engineer group, it's MnDOT, it's APWA, Met Council, go right on down the list. That represents about 10,000 engineering professionals in Minnesota. So that's kind of those groups represent kind of your to-do list of who to reach out to. And Barb has been pretty active in the past of presenting in front of those groups. So don't be afraid when we ask you to come and present to our groups. Don't be afraid to do it. So, okay.
Absolutely. I'm always available to do it, and I like doing it. So whenever you need it. And thanks for that information too, because I know Barb and I need to talk through lists of people to reach out to and different groups that are representative, and that's really good information.
Well, Barb set a pretty high standard, so I'm just putting you on notice.
I know. That's across the board, Brad. That's
okay.
He's pretty awesome.
Thank you. Any more questions for Kelly? Going once, going twice. Okay. That moves us on to Mr. Travis. What can I do for you?
I don't know, but I wasn't expecting to talk. This is going to be spur of the moment. So, Bob, did you have anything, or Karen, did you have anything? But I will go ahead and go if you guys don't. I know we've been working on the document back and forth, but did you guys put a slideshow project?
I can pull it up for you if that's what you're looking for.
If it's just the document that we've been working on, then don't worry about it. Otherwise, I'll share mine because I haven't.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Go ahead and share yours, Travis.
Okay. I'll go ahead with that then.
You guys have gotten so used to the whole show being me flapping my gums.
I guess so, but yeah, when you said something about me presenting at the top of the hour, I'm like, what? Whoa! So I threw up the lamest slideshow I could do here. So But I opened my mouth a while back about the fact that we've been working on this project for facility operators, for locators to get their locate marks on the map, just get maps more accurate and such. And but I mean, the whole reason why we're doing this is excavators, and excavators were kind of starting to fall by the wayside, I thought. And really, they're the ones that are on the job site. They're the ones calling in the ticket. They're the centric part of this whole thing, and they're out there the whole time from the beginning to the end of the job. And there's these GPS devices, the RTK devices, obviously on the front of our locators, and we have them also paired up with regular Samsung or iPad tablets. But we're noticing a real big uptick in the amount of units we're selling and the GPS interest in excavators. And obviously, when is it, 2025 or 2026 that they're required to start mapping everything that they install?
26, I believe.
26. That's why when you showed that timeline, Steve, when you had 2027 on there, I'd really love to have this thing going by the beginning of 2026. And put a rush on it. I think it's doable. But the whole idea is to give them a tool where we can bring this whole thing together. And so if you think about the ability to, on a handheld, and it could just be an iPhone, it doesn't have to necessarily have a centimeter accurate GPS built into it, but the GPS and even in phones are getting more and more accurate with the more constellations that they're picking up. But it would give them the ability to start a one call ticket. So they're out on site, they're standing there, they're trying to define where they're going to possibly place the utility or the line, and it will give them the ability by their geolocation of connecting to the local one call center, whether it be one or two or whatever. But this is nationwide. Since there's so many different one call centers, it will automatically connect them to whichever one is feasible. So, and then they can go ahead and walk out their dig area, put in their dig information, what their kind of work they're doing, what they're all the other questions they normally would. And then that would notify the facility operators, and they can go ahead and just use this app to follow the ticket process all the way through. So they can check in on it. And if the locators are using a GPS enabled locator, they'd start seeing locate marks show up on that on the FuzionView copy of the map, just like Bob was showing. And as the locates get completed, they could do the field markup. And so if there was marks not on the map yet, or facilities hadn't reported any GIS information, they can go ahead and walk out the paint and flags and mark up the map and add those to the map. And so as they're working through the ticket, they can keep on mapping and do other things here. Let me move on down here. So my second slide. So that starts and opens the ticket, creates they can do the field review, add things to the mapping if they don't see it on there already. So they're doing the field markup. But as they're excavating and placing the utility, of course, when they're done placing it or during the process of placing it, they can go ahead and map that new utility in. And anytime they come out around any unknowns or damages, they can report that, and the damages would actually sync up to like the dirt report. So we'd get more reporting when there's damages happening. That's the thing about the dirt report. It's only subject to the people that are actually reporting it. So there's a lot of damages that happen that are never reported. But we'd have more reporting of that, and plus we can use that information to map in unknowns. And that's one thing locators and facility operators just don't know. And then that ticket management process continues on through, and they can eventually close the ticket. And but that's a way to kind of keep everything in the palm of their hand, and maybe we can take that a step further eventually and move it on to doing final reports. A lot of times the excavators need to report exactly where they installed and give a PMZ file or a CAD file or something to their contractee and when they do their billing, and maybe the engineering group may want a copy in CAD or shapefile or something like that. But anyways, the excavator now has a useful tool in front of them, so it would make them want to use it because they can keep track of all their one call tickets and also help in the process of reporting unknowns and getting other things onto the map that maybe the facility operators and the locators will never be able to get to because we're not turning up the dirt. But this was just a thought in my head, so it just and then Steve put it on my shoulders, I guess, and Bob's and Karen's, and they've been helping out a lot. And then we was just spitballing it back and forth constantly through emails and through this document on how this is all going to work and what the actual necessity is. And if you guys have any feedback, of course, we all have a lot of experience in this field. So believe me, this is a pretty open project. So this is the infancy of it. So just feel free to open up your mouths now and think of, bring out things that we haven't thought about. But we would, again, still utilize the 100-foot buffer rule, outside the dig area. That's the only things they would be able to view on the app. And then they would be able to obviously add whatever they wanted in their layer. So the facility operators would be able to choose if they want to incorporate it into their GIS information or not, but at least they'd be able to see what the participated in or what they added to it. Does anyone have any questions? Is that a pretty close synopsis? Or Bob or Karen? Do you
No, you got it right on. I mean, for winging it, that's pretty good.
Hey, Travis, Brad here. I got a question for you. Who are you with?
Well, I met you, Brad, at APWA, but I Subsurface Solutions.
Well, that was part of my question.
I was the one that said you look taller online.
Hey, people who know me don't ever. My question, you aren't with UMSI.
No, but they are a customer of ours. And so, I mean, we sell the radio detection locators. We have subsurface maps or the online mapping portal. We have the app that puts it all together so they can map it.
Yeah. Well, no. Again,
But they are a good customer of ours. Yeah.
Yeah, that was part of my question because their leadership is into the national standards of high accuracy and all this stuff. So you're well aware of that.
Yeah.
So are you guys working with MnDOT? Yesterday at our Minnesota IAM meeting, we had the MnDOT as-built people talking about their new as-built process, the high accuracy, the electronic file, et cetera. So are you working with those people?
No, but are they working with us? Want, Brad.
Well, let's put it like this: MnDOT is going to run the show at MnDOT, so you have to be at least talking to them.
I'm sure. They would be definitely interested, and I do talk to them all the time. And I don't know if I've mentioned.
Well,
they were at the APWA as well, so they.
Yeah, I can pass on the name of the person, but B, we have a video of yesterday's meeting that I'm going to circulate here in a couple of minutes, so you can actually listen to the guy talking and you can see his name and his contact. So all this is really great information. Really, my only role is make sure everybody's talking to each other, that we aren't out there.
Yeah, we want as much feedback as possible because my biggest thing, we have all kinds of vendors that will probably, make this system and sell it, but I want something non-proprietary and I want something free. I seriously,
I don't disagree.
I'm a vendor, and so that's the problem is we get pigeonholed and stuck in overpriced and where people just can't use it. Excavators will use it if it's free, and that's what we want. We want the excavator feedback, and that's the only way we're going to get caught up on mapping all the underground. We're so far behind. We need everybody helping out. Everybody.
Okay, Travis, send me your email. We'll talk later.
Okay.
Steve knows how to get a hold of me.
I just wanted to add on a little bit to what Travis is kind of detailed here. We've actually gone through the process in a lot more detail than he's relaying. I wanted to reiterate that we're at the beginning stages. This is basically the first pass at a needs list. I'm just getting ready to set it up. We're doing a technical review right now. We got about a third of the way through it this morning, as a matter of fact. And once that technical review is done, we're going to be putting it out to the larger community. So everything that Travis talked about has been broken down into much finer detail. And we're going through those different steps right now to try and set it up for review by the larger community. So just kind of wanted to throw that out there, that's where it's at. And if anybody's got any ideas on the kind of capabilities that they want or need in the field, let Travis or myself know.
I'd like to keep it as simple as possible, though, too. I mean, when you start bringing in other parties like MnDOT and stuff, too, we want their feedback, but they have to understand we need a step stool before we need a ladder. So, we also, when you put stuff in excavators' hands, if it's overcomplicated, they're not going to use it. So you just want something real simple and also useful for them. That's the main thing, the excavator.
Travis, I agree 100% with you. I worked for a municipal organization for much of my career. And so I get the fact that some people like to make stuff difficult. And that was quite honestly my comment during the
Yeah.
presentation
Yeah.
yesterday.
And this is going to be
MnDOT
open
was
source.
getting a
It's
little
not,
too anal on this stuff. So,
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve or Bob or what. I mean, since this is open source, it doesn't mean they can't take this and then go ahead and add and make their own app. And, you know, right?
That's correct. They can integrate it any way they need to.
Yeah.
Well, Travis and Bob, thanks for all this work. This is a terrific start. Is there a way that we can get a copy of this more granular document so that we can get a look at it outside of the meeting?
I want to get through the technical review first.
Okay.
We're coming up with a lot more how do I say it? We need clarification on a few elements before we kind of put it out to the wider community. So
Sure. Well, when it's in shape, I'd sure like to get a look at it. And
Yeah.
I'm sure many of the others on this call would too.
Absolutely.
But great work.
Does anybody else have any feedback? Please share if there's anything that just jumps at you that you know we have not mentioned.
Well, I think that you're absolutely right in saying that, you know, we can get as complicated as we want in figuring out, you know, what it's got to do and so forth. But the end user interface has to be pretty simple in terms of putting the excavator in position to know what information is being furnished and what is not being furnished. I think that'll be important.
Travis, I wanted to, so Bob and Travis, when you get to the point where you've got the list, if you will, as fine-tuned as you can before putting it out for further consideration, I think it's important that we publish it in a way that includes the feedback loop. Because I mean, just saying contact Bob or me,
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah.
we'll need to have a link or something, whatever.
Well,
Yeah.
that was just for this meeting here. We're going to be putting it out in some form, some casting a bigger net in some way, I would imagine.
Well, I understand, but I'm just trying to make sure that we have a solid feedback loop. Travis gets that. Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
just thought. Any more questions for Travis or Bob on the start of phase 2?
I guess the one other item that I wanted to cover is that we at several points along the line we talked about the field markup service as constituting the feedback loop going from the facility operator's locator back to the facility operator. And then what we just talked about now is the eventual transmission of the locate data from the facility operator to the excavator. I guess I'd assumed, but now I realize I should ask the question. At one point in time, we had talked about that first piece, the facility operator's information being transmitted back through the facility operator through the facility operator's own means, not through the notification center. But the notification center acting as the conduit for communication of the data between the facility operator and the excavator. Is that still the view, or is this sort of an end-to-end thing where that would all be within one, where the communication of the data would all be done the same way on each of those legs?
From the programming side, to be defined.
Okay.
Still trying to figure out how that's all going to manifest. Initial thoughts, though, on that is that from Travis's perspective, one leads to the other automatically. So it's a business kind of routing problem, but nothing's in stone yet.
Any further comment, Travis?
No, I mean, just kind of what Bob said. I guess it has to be TBD, but still, I picture it as a simple download. I mean, obviously, if that facility is owned by the city or whatever, they, you know, and the excavator added their own notes or their own photos or damage or unknowns or whatever, anybody that's a facility operator on that ticket has the ability to possibly, as long as they're a partner, has the ability to hit download and download it as a shape file or whatever and add it to their facility maps, is how I picture
Okay.
It could be as simple
Well-
as a validation process layer too. So
it. Yeah, that an excavator validation layer or something like that. Yep.
We'll need Liz and Justin and others to be thinking about that and chime in with their thoughts at some point. Maybe not now, but before we get too far down the line.
Understood.
Do you really want my thoughts? Do you really want my thoughts, Dean?
Yes, Justin, we do.
Okay.
What are your thoughts, Justin? I mean, do you have any thoughts on this? I know you do.
I'm still, y'all know that I have a project like this over in Wisconsin where I'm mapping everything.
Yeah.
I have a lot of concern about the data.
And the
lot
biggest
of
thing on
concern.
this, Justin, I mean, is gathering the exposure. So when they hydrovac and they're spotting all these lines, these excavators then can get us that data to so we can know how accurate our GPS data is and
Right.
get it quantified.
Right. That it does quantify it, but like having this information out there, I mean, I've done almost the entire state for our gas in Wisconsin, which is a very small portion of the amount that we have in other states. The amount of critical data that we have there, or not just like the validation of the data, and it's not just because of the locator, it has to do with the real-time correction. We have a lot of stuff to go through, and it's not just as black and white as what I originally thought it was going to be when I stepped into it, right?
Truthfully, even after you go through it, nobody really knows if that's an A grade or not until somebody actually puts eyes on it, right? And the only one that's doing that is the excavator. So if we give them the ability to say, yeah, it was exactly in the right spot where they said it was, you know, now then you have the photo to prove it.
I think that we have to have the ability to say that on those maps that it was legacy locate data rather than install data.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a crucial point right there, is like, 'cause I've already had eyes on it, right, when I installed it. I think that is one point that we can't overstep.
And that's something that the locator would need too. That would be very useful for the locator. So if he's locating somewhere where he knows there's, you know, good data and he's off to the side locating somewhere else, he can stop himself right away.
Right. It's the legacy data. That's the one that scares all of us, is that legacy pipe that we have in the ground. That's the scary part of the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I think we're ready to move on to Barb. Do you want me to put up, hold on a second here, Barb. I'll jump back here. Maybe I won't jump back here. Share. And so Barb has asked that we give consideration to this particular discussion item. How should we implement a slow and steady approach that will add additional pioneer partners in Q1, Q2, and into the remainder of 2025? And Barb has the floor to lead this. There we go.
Thank you. We have over a half a dozen pioneer partners that have really helped us over the last year, starting with MnDOT, and then Bob went through many of them. Yes, we have to do more work with each of them from an end-to-end and fully integration and look at some of their networks. But many of you have connections, all of you have connections throughout the state of Minnesota, and have ideas of well, we should talk to this company or that municipality. So what I wanted today was many of you to say, here's my idea on how we should approach this. We want to be sure that as we implement, it's successful and we don't run into a bandsaw someplace that because we hadn't planned properly. So what are people's thoughts about maybe who we should approach, how we should approach them? We've talked about design engineers, we've talked about municipalities, we've talked about specific organizations like lodges, but many of you have other ideas that I just would really like to hear what's on your mind on. How should 2025 be approached? And so, oh yeah, Bob, go ahead. And you,
Just a simple one, I think,
Yeah.
but as we think about moving forward and engaging more partners, if you think about this solution as a whole and all of the stakeholder groups that will potentially interact with it, one, have we identified that list of stakeholder groups? And then the back part of that would be, my opinion, would be intentional to ensure we have equal representation of all of those stakeholder groups to ensure everything is progressing in the best way for the industry.
Okay. I think what we'll do today is listen, take notes. People can add on to Bob's comment or do more comments on it in a different direction. So thank you, Bob.
I'd like to chime in with one that struck me just the other day, actually. It seems to me that more following up kind of on what Bob's talking about, that the two principal organizations that will, or I should say categories of organizations who will have to contribute their data to make this work are either a corporation or a municipality. And it seems to me that the cell in that case needs to be crafted differently. I think the municipality is going to be more interested in what they can do in terms of safety. And I think a corporation is going to be more interested in the cell from the standpoint of how are you going to save me money? I think it's two different perspectives. Anyway, thought.
Okay.
Yeah, Steve, I'll jump in here. Remember about 5 to 8 years ago, we did a statewide survey. Cities and counties each have more infrastructure than MnDOT. So it isn't just municipalities, it's cities, counties, and MnDOT that are doing basically all of the public construction. And then you are correct, you've got commercial agencies too doing the private construction. And we can, the report is online. You can see it right out there.
Okay.
Where's that report, Brad?
It's out at the Wilder Association. Offline, I'll just get the exact link and show you the report.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Paul, can I call on you? You've been throughout the state of Minnesota many a time. What are your thoughts as you work in this area? Anybody else want to comment? Oh, Paul was talking.
I didn't know if he was. He's on mute.
Oh, okay.
Paul, are you there? Getting credit for being in the meeting, but off, off on coffee break. You're busted. How about Frank? Frank's typically got a lot of good ideas. What do you got, Frank?
I'll be honest with you, I've been paying attention, but at the same time, I got a sick kid at home. So,
sorry to hear that.
Do you want to? I guess was there a question? I apologize.
Well, it's in terms of how do we approach this slow and steady rollout. as we have, over half a dozen pioneer partners that we need to continue to work with, how and who should we approach as 2025 rolls out?
Yeah, honestly, I'd like, selfishly, internally, I'd like to host you guys. Our office is currently under construction, but once that's done, first quarter of 2025, I'd really think getting FuzionView in front of our engineers for various municipalities throughout the state would be a great opportunity to get this kind of showcased within WSB internally, and then kind of building it out from there. I know we had a conversation with, our competitor ISG, another engineering firm, last time we spoke at WSB. I know they're definitely interested, and we compete in the same space, but with something like this is something that we could bring them in on as well, and possibly their clients, just to kind of get a quick view, or at least their engineers, so they can bring it to their clients, their municipalities and whatnot as well.
Yeah, and it really, the whole value proposition is speeding up that engineering phase to get maps. Absolutely.
But yeah, definitely word of mouth through municipalities. MnDOT will definitely help, and try to get some of those cornerstone corporate utilities involved as well.
Okay. Thank you. If no other comments, maybe Kevin, do you have anything to offer today?
Well, I definitely want to jump on, forget who said it, but we got to try to identify the various stakeholder groups and make sure that we get somebody. I don't know about equal representation, but at least one or two key players in each of the stakeholder groups on board and helping us to promote and move it forward.
Okay.
So that may be one of the more difficult challenges we face. Some of the groups might take some real selling. Why is this important to them? And like Justin was saying, some of them, it could be the safety side. Some of them, it's the money side. We got to figure out why it's important to each of the groups, and then how to sell them on that. Why they need to get involved as a pioneer partner. Why is it? Why would it benefit them? I'll be trying to do that as I'm going around and doing my thing in the municipal world. I speak at a conference next week on the one call changes with MMUA, but that's just my little slice of the pie. All of us got to be, like Adam was talking about, the word of mouth being so important. It is. All of us got to be spreading that word of mouth and encouraging others to become some of those pioneer partners helping us.
And also working with the current pioneer partners to capture their why. Why has it been important to them, and how will they see it important to them as years go by?
But I think the things to gather from your pioneer partners also is that whole KPI of it is what kind of money savings are they having? What are they seeing in reductions of damages or in partnership? I think that maybe that's what we need to have, like a baseline of what we're looking to achieve to get people to understand that here's the benefits of it. So we're kind of looking at the same thing from each one of these pioneer partners going, okay, this is how much money we've saved in the reduction of tickets being from over notification or whatever it is. Because that's going to be the hard sell is for the larger companies. Why would I invest so much money to GPS all of the facilities and not see my return on my dollar?
Yeah, well, and being able to view the maps. Tricia Stefanski at MnDOT did a great interview with CGA that she covered a lot of these points, but that hasn't been finalized yet. I mean, it should be done any minute, but she had made a lot of these the points that spoke to the MnDOT why it's important for people to view maps and have accurate data, even view maps of legacy data.
Barb, would you be would you be interested in me showing kind of what we did for the mock-up for the decision maker document?
Yeah, sure, that's great. And then
Why
as
don't
Kelly said, how do you do a higher level one, just kind of a flashy
Yeah.
one? Yeah, go ahead.
So this would be, hopefully we can get it to come on up here. What I wanted, what I'll show you here, if I can get to it, not
Oh,
happy
happy
holidays.
holidays.
This is the intent on this was we worked through with OCC and we've also got on board at Shared Geo Mike Sovereign, who for a long time worked with infrastructure resources and is familiar with their um, their various publications and whatnot. And we came up with this as the final, if you will, straw man, because we've been beating this thing up for an extended period of time, and maybe this will stimulate some further discussion. But the document, as proposed, and still needs blessing of the leadership team, correction, reorientation, depending on what Kelly wants to do. But the idea here is this document would be provided to the upper management as a function of, for instance, what Frank was just talking about, providing an opportunity to speak to a group and then provide this as the handout on the back side of it. And it's structured in an 8-page format, and it uses primarily the money idea as being the core cell, and then it uses 3 themes, which are an adjustment from what we originally put up on the website. So it's simple, I should say smart, simple, secure. And as I go through this, so this would be the cover page. And then the next page you would see what would be on the inside of the cover page, trying to hit what would be the value to the respective communities: facility operator, design engineer, locator, excavator, hitting the theme that, the underground, or I should say the Common Ground Alliance is looking at, it's costing the nation 30 billion annually, and that's literally potentially hundreds of millions of dollars in Minnesota alone. And then the idea that more of the stuff is going underground every year, there's got to be a better way. And then the facing page would be the solution, and we would talk through some elements of community developed and sponsored, securely see everything underground, most current data available, protects infrastructure by enhancing safe digging, provides over on the right hand side kind of the conceptual, idea of what FuzionView does, and then with the hypothetical quote. And as I've said, we're working with PHMSA, and I believe we'll be able to get a quote that will support that. So then, if you flip the page over, then you would start the sequence in the set that walks through why it's smart. And so we start with a Common Ground Alliance, bringing damage prevention mapping technology, that quote up above, and then we try to talk through why it's going to increase efficiency. We use an example here of what was done in the UK, and the UK's projecting a 1.5 billion once operational in 2025. And then finally, on the bottom of the page, as we do on each page, we have another breakout item. It's telling them that FuzionView software has been built to international standards so it can easily integrate, and it's community funded software, so it's free to use. And then we move into simple, about how it can be simple for the end user to use and how it can be simple for the facility operator to connect their databases up. And then another, quote down here in the bottom. And then we talk through on a list of why it's secure. What are the various elements of it that we hope out of the box will slay the pushback on the security element. And then a final thing that basically says there's no law or policy guidance. Keep people from sharing data. It's a matter of we as a community have the willingness to move forward. And then the last interior page of it would be showing, what the collaborative effort is, who's donated money, and potentially who's already endorsed it. And then the last page, the outside page is, the thought again, plus who the points of contact are, and then the way to get to the website. So that's kind of what we've developed as an initial way of trying to do outreach to people. And as I indicated again, this is still in rough development. This is more or less a concept document, and maybe you have some additional thoughts after seeing this about, Barb's topic of how should we move forward with outreach in quarter 1 and quarter 2 in a way to get things going.
Yeah, thank you, Steve.
Hey, Steve, Paul Teicher.
Yes, sir.
Oh, there you are. Hi, Paul.
I wanted to clear my name here a little bit. I was here. It's the new update on the phone here, and I couldn't find the mute button, so forgive me. But yeah, I do agree with this summary that basically this pamphlet that you're putting out or preparing. I do think that is a great approach. I agree a lot with what Kevin was saying and Justin was saying. We need to make sure that we're, focusing on all the groups, kind of collectively, but, being specific to smaller groups as well. The ones that maybe don't have all the technology as some of these larger groups do. Continuing to show the ease of use of either the equipment or the FuzionView itself, I think will be very important so that folks don't get scared off just by simple technology. And then, making sure that everybody understands that this is affordable. And I'm also wondering, on the document, we talk about national damages and the big numbers. Is there a way, does DIRT create a report that is more regional or even more area specific? If we can tell folks that, and I'm just going to throw out a name here and I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, but if we can say that in the Monticello area alone, over $200,000 worth of damages happened in a 6-month period last year. If we could get specific on some of that stuff, I think folks would start to realize that, this is local. This isn't just a national problem. This is local. So I guess that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, Paul, those are good points. And what I'd add on to that with the law changes now, starting in Q1 of 2025, people will have to submit their damage report to MinOps. There'll be the utility and who it was. There probably won't be cost related, but at least now we'll start getting numbers of hits.
Yeah.
We haven't had that for a long time.
I think that'll be a very head turning point for some of these, boards and councils, and when they start to realize that, hey, this is close to home. I think that's going to be key.
Yeah, one of the great stats is that traditionally the state has about 2,200 hits per year, and until recently, the majority of them have been on gas lines.
Well, that's all that's required for reporting. There's many more hits than that. But,
yeah,
those are.
No, but I mean,
yeah.
That's an eye opener statistic that we didn't think about when we were doing up the doc. So great feedback. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate that. I've taken you off the list of people that are going to get coal in their stockings.
Awesome. Thank you.
I want to echo what Barb just said. There's a lot more hits on the other utilities that are simply not reported to MinOps or any other data collecting agency like DIRT. There's a lot more other hits that are going unreported.
Kevin, do you think we maybe need an app that they can easily report it? Like the excavator can just pull out and just say, hey, do you think that would help?
They might. I would be concerned.
We could probably call it the markup tool.
I would be concerned about the accuracy or the reliability of it, but
no, I just want to get it reported. And really, a photo says 1,000 words, man. If they can just take a photo in perspective, yeah, I mean, that's just helpful in itself, not necessarily just the GPS data, just something.
As most people know,
big help this year that
but there was some conversation going on. I heard something and it triggered interesting thoughts in my mind, thinking about the SiteRite solution and the excavator module. So let's go excavator minded, and now we're in the excavator module of SiteRite, and an excavator could go out and hit the follow me button and walk an excavation site, and SiteRite could generate a dig site polygon for part of the ticket submission from that. Is that very far-fetched?
No,
not very far-fetched, but why would that be any better?
I don't know if Bob's supposed to be on this conversation or ours.
Well, no, there's some interest in it coming out of this Minnesota meeting.
Oh, I think Bob is on another call.
Yeah, I think you want to mute.
Okay, then.
It's not far-fetched, Travis, and it's something that is in the hopper for future development on our side. I'm sure other states are looking at similar approaches. It's not just a Minnesota problem, though. Damage reporting varies incredibly from state to state. In some states, everything gets reported because it's required by law. In other states, very little, if anything, gets reported at all. And you've got a lot of states that have a similar approach to Minnesota, where it's regulated utilities that are the only ones that are really forced.
You know darn well the excavator, if they can sweep it under the rug, they are. So, and I mean, if I shoot from the hip, I'd say only 10% is getting really reported, 10-15%.
Well, we'll see with this mandatory reporting, what happens with it. Does it stay at that 10% or does it go up?
Yeah, unless there's water or gas coming out of it and nobody comes out of their house and says, I don't have my phone or something's not working, then I think the excavator just doesn't report it. So
okay. Well, again, thank you for the discussion on this. I think we gathered some additional insight. Thank you.
I think that means, Barb, we're done early, so it's a Christmas present to everybody, or Hanukkah or whatever. Kwanzaa, who cares? All right. So there it is. Next meeting, Thursday, March 27, 2025, 1 p.m. in the afternoon. So, you know, Adam, you can do a little bit more shoveling.
Yeah. You were right, Steve. I hate that slide. Although the duct taped shovel handle is a little too close to home.
Okay.
Oh, look at that. Yeah.
All right. The floor's open. Does anybody else have anything else they'd like to share?
No, just thanks again to everybody. Just terrific discussion today. A lot of good points I have jotted down for follow-up. So thanks to everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you.
Could I just
Barb,
add one thing?
Barb, you may have passed the baton on to Kelly, but I hope that doesn't mean you're leaving the stadium.
No, if you need me, Kelly knows where to find me. You all know where to find me. But it's been a great. This has been a great project, and this next year is really pivotal.
Well, I, for one, we couldn't have done it without you.
Well, no, thank you, but we all did it. Yep.
I think Barb, at a minimum, deserves a round of applause from the group. So thank you very much, Barb.
Thank you.
Everything you've done.
Okay, then.
Yeah. Okay. I think that takes us. Barb, final comments. What do you got for us?
Enjoy the holidays and be safe.
Just like the slide says,
Yep.
there you go. And one last reminder, here you go. People willing to roll up their sleeves seldom lose their shirts. All right, everybody, have a great
Bye-bye.
weekend. Happy holidays to everybody.